Hey there, friends. My name is Jim, and today we have the unfortunate responsibility to bring up the stupid fucking Oscars. I know, who cares, right? Just a little bit of black on black violence, not something we don't see every single day. But there are some things about this particular incident that really exemplifies the self-righteous hypocrisy of the elite left, and I figure this is a good medium to clarify what I think of these social parasites who call themselves celebrities. It's kind of a perfect encapsulation of the level they'll go to not only gaslight and lie to their audience, but themselves as well. And the really funny thing is that this incident, according to their worldview, shouldn't have happened at all. So without further ado, let's take a few minutes to discuss the slap heard around the world. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind you guys that you are how I get these stories out there. So if you think this video is important, feel free to share it on Facebook, Twitter, send it to your mom, your dad, your brother, whoever you think would enjoy it. And if you think what I do is actually valuable, feel free to visit me at Patreon, Locals, or my site at jimmyjams.xyz in the description below. Now, let's get into this nonsense. So, if you're lucky enough to have not heard, the Oscars were last night, and it was just as decadent and full of weird-ass liberal elitism as always. Of course, starting with the three female hosts crying about how they were only hired based on the supposed fact that men get paid more than women do for the same work.
This year, the Academy hired 3 women to host because it's cheaper than hiring one man.
And then Amy Schumer had to throw in her favorite trope, which is casual racism against white women, because, she wouldn't be able to tell any jokes about anyone before first checking her privilege in front of the less privileged millionaire celebrities in the audience.
But I'm still excited to be hosting, representing black women who are standing proud.
Yes, and living out loud. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I am representing unbearable white women who call the cops when you get a little too loud. Okay.
Of course, they threw in a bit about toxic masculinity, because everybody likes to hear jokes like that.
This year we saw a frightening display of how toxic masculinity turns into cruelty towards women and children.
I tell you, damn that Mitch McConnell.
I know. But I was actually talking about the power of the dog.
Oh, yes.
And finally, of course, they had to take a bit of a dig at a new Florida bill that passed that says you can't teach children about gay sex until they're at least 9 years old. You see, the people who think that you have to be indoctrinated into the LGBTQAIP+ group from birth didn't like parents saying that they'd prefer their children learn this type of thing alongside sex ed when they're older. Because this group of people are actually pro-pedophilia, any suggestion that these kinds of topics should be talked about when the child's actually old enough to understand it is seen as silencing their voices and being dangerous to LGBT youth. To those people, I would say, why is it not bad to keep people from talking about normal sex in kindergarten, but when it comes to gay sex, every kid has to know the precise ins and outs, or you're somehow harming them? Well, the LGBT activists were quick to label this bill the Don't Say Gay bill, because that implies that this piece of legislation is about literally not allowing teachers to say the word gay at all, instead of stopping predators grooming children, which is what it's really about. I say all that because these fucking stupid bitches decided to give my state a shout out.
Well, we're going to have a great night tonight, and for you people in Florida, we're going to have a gay night. Gay.
Look, ladies, nobody in Florida gives a flying fuck how much you say gay. But the fact that so many of you are willing to die on the hill of telling kindergartners what BDSM means to the gay community speaks volumes about your real intentions. The only thing the bill says about any of this is, and I quote, prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels, unquote. That is the decision of the parents of the children, so when you say you think teachers should just automatically be allowed to talk about gay sex to any child regardless of the parents' wishes, you're the bad guy. This bill was signed into law and put in the books today, so expect to hear more about this, but we don't care if you put up 1,000 billboards on our highways or sing it at the Oscars. Florida will not let you keep grooming our children. Anyways, moving on to the Will Smith portion of the evening, there's a bit of background that's kind of important to this. Now, I want to start by saying that I was initially under the impression that this was all fake in order to get more viewership, because Over the last few decades, the Academy Awards have been bleeding viewers, and since 2014, it's gotten significantly worse for them. It culminated last year when they had, I think, 10.4 million, which was less than half of what they had in the 2020 viewership. Suffice it to say that these people are having less and less of an impact on culture, and they know it. With jokes like the kind I showed you earlier, can you really blame people for not tuning in? I hate to point it out, but the Academy Awards are done in the USA, which happens to be a majority white Christian nation. And when you actively attack people and say that their only worth is to be a Karen and that their religion is inherently evil, well, those people will probably stop showing up to watch you give each other little goodie bags more than most of us make in a year. So, Will Smith has an interesting relationship with his wife. She's gone on television a bunch of times to basically brag about how she was unfaithful to him, and now they talk about it like it was an open relationship, but if you read between the lines just a little bit, it's pretty obvious what's going on here. For instance, in an episode of Jada Pinkett Smith's show called Red Table Talk, she and Will came on to air all their dirty laundry for the entire world to hear, and it wasn't very pretty. At one point, he said he was ready to kick her to the curb, and they both broke down just how unhappy they were in the relationship.
You and I were going through a very difficult time.
Yeah.
And we decided...
I was done with your ass.
Yeah, you kicked me to the curb.
I was done with you.
Yeah.
Marriages have that, though. Marriages have that.
Yeah.
Now, you might think, he's right. They just had something they needed to work out, and now they're stronger for it. Well, I don't want to show you the whole 12-minute interview, but if you're interested in this kind of celebrity gossip garbage, I recommend watching it in its entirety because it is full of red flags that he's still unhappy and feels completely emasculated. And you know what? I can't really blame him.
With August. And one thing I want to get clear about and clean up, one of the things that was kind of swirling in the press about you giving permission, which is... the only person that can give permission in that particular circumstance is myself.
Yes, exactly. I think, because this is your red table and you brought yourself to the red table, I think you need to say clearly what happened.
As far as what?
You and I decided we were going to take our space, and what happened?
Yeah, and then I got into an entanglement with August. That's what I said.
An entanglement?
Yes. Yes.
A relationship?
Yes, it was a relationship, absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the face of a broken man. A man who got his balls taken off in front of the entire world and just accepted it. Personally, I would be doing anything that I could to try and regain that masculine energy I lost. I mean, for fuck's sake, she goes on to say that it wasn't a bad thing because she healed, and if he, August, the guy she was cheating with, hadn't broken it off with her, she'd still be doing it.
Well, I definitely understand why it would look that way or feel that way, but I actually don't look at it as a transgression at all. Through that particular journey, I learned so much about myself and was able to really confront a lot of emotional immaturity, emotional insecurity, and I was really able to do some really deep healing. And as I came through and started to realize certain things about you and I, he decided to break all communication with me, which was totally understandable.
Right.
And I let that be.
But, aside from it being very funny, Will Smith being a cuck is pretty much old news, and that's not that important, as is the reaction to what he did. As a professional actor and a millionaire, he knows exactly what's expected of him in a place like that. Mel Gibson was in the audience. What do you think the narrative would have been if Chris Rock made a joke about, alcoholism, and Gibson decided to jump up and punch him in the face? Well, first off, Chris Rock would have actually probably gotten hurt because I'd imagine Mel Gibson doesn't slap people like a little girl. But besides that, you can bet that stage security would have been up there within a nanosecond, grabbing him and dragging him out of the gala. He would have definitely been ejected, and then he would be put in jail, and everybody would immediately jump to race. Well, even Cenk Uygur, the head of the more radical side of the Democratic fake news machine, admitted this. And you can absolutely bet your ass that Chris Rock would be pressing hard charges against somebody like that. But in Will Smith's case, nothing. No consequences, no reactions, no problems because of his ridiculous antics, something that any adult would have dealt with had they not been in the demographic that Will Smith is in. But had it actually been Gibson, Cenk would have been the first one calling for his head. People would say that it didn't matter what Chris Rock said. Gibson punched him because he doesn't like black people, and this is an example of white privilege, that Gibson is even rich enough to be able to get bailed out. Well, what really happened was a wonderful example of black privilege in action. This black man knew that because of the color of his skin, he would not be held to the same standards as his white peers. He knew this because it was true. Because not only was Smith not kicked out of the venue, not only did everybody ignore how disrespectful and thin-skinned he was, but mere minutes later he actually won his Academy Award, showing the world that no matter how inappropriately you act, all you need to get out of that trouble is melanin. And if you think I'm being hyperbolic, let's check this article right here real quick. Now, before I start ripping this stupid article to pieces, I would like to point out that this is in teen Vogue. And for those of you out there with children, I'd like you to remember that between all of the abortions and the gay sex, the irreligiousness and the belief in climate change, leftists don't have children. That's why they want yours. So they open the article with this little overly offensive title: "The Will Smith and Chris Rock slap situation is not about you. History is repeating itself, with white people reframing black people's neutral states or our valid anger as threatening to them." Well, first off, to whoever this article is, nobody thinks that they're threatened. They might be like, oh, you came up and slapped a person, that's inappropriate, and I was slapped in the past. But for some reason, people want to say, this is black people business. You stay out of this. This is our business. Well, sorry, but I'm here to read about it. So, Will Smith isn't your abusive daddy or ex-boyfriend. And Chris Rock is not you as an abuse survivor claiming to be triggered by a single slap. It's a startling thing to have to say aloud, but after the slap heard round the world, literally thanks to uncensored coverage of the Oscars from Japanese and Australian television networks, it's clear that plenty of people don't understand that they aren't the main character at this moment, and by projecting their experiences onto the situation, they are showing they believe harmful stereotypes about black people. Look, my dude, I'm sorry, but just because you call it a stereotype doesn't mean that it's inaccurate. I could get into the crime statistics if you'd like, but right now I'm too busy getting involved in black people business. Now, this individual goes on to explain the situation, making jabs at anybody who tweeted this was a bad thing to do, bringing up Breonna Taylor apropos of nothing, and basically doing the most simple race baiting possible. So, there you have it. This is black people's business, so you aren't allowed to have an opinion. As a matter of fact, anything you could possibly say about it is probably rooted in your own racism, so it's best just not to say anything at all. This is the best they can do, because once you start talking about why the rich professional black man couldn't control himself, then you start getting into a subject that's 100% forbidden. They don't give no wiggle room to that kind of thing. According to this person, if you're talking about something more than 36 hours after it happened, you must just be a racist trying to make black people look violent. Well, I'm sorry, Carly, but considering your skin complexion, I'm gonna have to go ahead and ignore anything you have to say about this. Why are you in black people's business anyways? And this has always been my strongest complaint about the racialism of progressive liberals. It's just the newest spin on an age-old idea called the white man's burden. You see, back in the days of like New Worlds and oceanic explorations, white men would go from place to place, seeing how badly black people had infrastructure, how badly they treated each other, how they had open-air slave markets, and they would call it barbaric. They would say that because these people didn't have the chance to evolve in Europe, they had an inherent disadvantage and they needed white people to fix it. This is how you got all these French and English and Dutch settlements all over the world. They thought that they were better than the black indigenous people and needed to show them how to do things. These days, you have white people claiming their privilege allows them certain things that black people simply cannot get. They openly say that the only way black people could ever get to the societal level of white Europeans is with their help. That's why it's so important to check your privilege, after all. I hate to be like, the Dems are the real racists kind of guy, but I mean, the Democrats are real racists. I mean, they started the KKK, they held the longest filibuster in history to keep segregation, and developed welfare specifically to destroy the black family unit. And now, when I want to talk about how to fix the problem, white Jewish women tell me to stay out of it. So, that's that. Black man girly slaps another black man, and everybody pretends it wasn't a big deal in order to not look racist, which is pretty fucked up when you think about it, because how can any minority group focus on themselves and fixing their own problems in their communities when the majority, white people, are constantly reinforcing the fact that it's all whitey's fault, and the only reason any of these minority groups have any kind of discrepancies is because white people did that and white supremacy is the problem. I don't know how you fix all that, but boy, Will Smith is a cuck. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please share and comment below to tell me how I'm wrong if you didn't. You guys have a great night. Peace.